This tutorial is going to talk about the lab placard. So it's the safety sign in our laboratories that lists hazard information, protective equipment, and physical hazards in the room. To get to this portion, to this utility in the system, you're going to click on Lab Administration and then go down to Facility Inventory. And what you'll see is a list of rooms assigned to each department. Now I'm logged in, so I see all the departments here, but you can choose between all rooms and then the divisions of spaces: teaching, support, and research. We're going to choose teaching laboratories, and I'm going to go down to chemistry. So if I was going to want to print out a safety sign for, say, PADNOS 307, we'd click on Hazard Worksheet, and this would be the form that we're going to work with. So there's three parts to this form. The part on the left here is going to be the printable version that the computer will print. In the middle here is our worksheet, and here is where we're going to make selections on what actually goes on to the printable document. And then this last section over here, this gray section, is pretty much a programming. It has fields here for specific parts that the computer will need to develop content in the sign. So we're going to start and kind of walk through. In the top here, we've got the building and room. In the next section here, we've got a general statements for pretty much every laboratory except a handful. So we're always going to make sure that we know where our safety data sheets are. So here we have our announcement here of where they're located. The next one is food and drink are mostly prohibitive in pretty much every space except for, like I said, a handful. So we're going to make that a default, and I'll show you how to change that in a second. And we've got laboratory staff contact lists, so if anything happens in the room, everybody knows who to contact. We've got GHS information, which pulls from our inventory system. So this will pull all of the hazard placards for chemicals in that space. PPE requirements are, things you need to wear to make sure that you're safe in the room. And then we've got a hazard communication section here for physical hazards, UV light, radiation, so on. The last space on the bottom is just a legalese statement, just to let people know that just because we post this doesn't mean that it covers every potential hazard that might be associated in that day. So, and then this website below here has got more information about this sign in general, about all of the icons with further definition. So if anybody's interested, that's a good place to go to. The last bit is this barcode. The barcode is meant for people doing laboratory inspections with the system. We've got another system in place for that. You can actually scan this barcode, and in the inspection it'll populate this room. So if you're going to walk into a room and want to do an inspection, you can just scan that barcode and get started. So let's walk through the worksheet part of this. Like I said before, we've got some general safety stuff up here. If for some reason food and drink is allowed in the space, which is very few, but there are some, we can go ahead and click on yes, and which will remove the no food or drink. The second part here is other hazards. So here's a section, a brief, area where here's a section where you can add specific hazards for the room that aren't covered on the general form. The next part is defining where the chemical hazard information is going to come from. So we've got three choices here to be exact. So you can pull information from the prep database, you can pull information from the room inventory, or we can pull a specific the researcher who is assigned to the space. Now for the most part, the researchers are going to be handled by the college staff. So we don't need to we're not going to really focus on this guy. We're only going to focus on these two. So now if you're in the room and say you wanted to go through and add all the hazards associated with a specific course. Say we wanted to do Chem 232. So we can go ahead and we click on this, and then all of the hazards associated with that laboratory are populated within this section. And you can change, so if for some reason we're not teaching that course anymore in that room and we keep teaching it in 109, we're going back to we can go back to the 109 hazards. We can also choose the room inventory. So if we click on room inventory, it'll pull up everything all the hazards associated with the chemicals that are listed as stored in this room in the chemical database, chemical inventory. So those are a couple choices that you have. Protective equipment, you've got some choices here. So if there's none, we can click on none, and we don't need to wear PPE in the room. If you're in most of our chemistry or laboratories using chemicals, then we're just going to go ahead and say, okay, I need to choose some maybe glasses. I need to wear gloves, or maybe I don't need to wear glasses and I'd rather wear goggles to make sure that I'm safe. So these are the choices that you can make. The next part is hazard communication. So we've got hazard communication. So EHS hazards are next, and they're down here. So we can go through and click on anything that we might have as a possibility. So if we've got biohazards, click on biohazard, and the appropriate icon will show up. We've got radiation in the room, if we've got lasers, and pretty much choose which hazards are associated with the room. The next is a contact list. So this will populate who we need to contact in case of emergency. So here, since this room is assigned to chemistry, we've got all the chemistry lab supervisors here, all the numbers that are associated that somebody might want to call for chemistry. So we can add Michelle DeWitt, we can add Dave Hickety, we can add the chemistry stockroom, up to 4. So what we can also do is we can also order these contacts depending on who you would potentially call first. So maybe you would like to call the chemistry stockroom first. So we're going to click 1. And maybe you want to call Michelle DeWitt second. And then maybe Dave Hickety third. So once we do that, once we order, they will reorder in the document, and then we're able to print. The last thing on the worksheet is the utilities, and we've only got 2 choices here. So we can either print or go back to the home screen. So obviously it's pretty self-explanatory. We're printing this sign here, or we can go back to our list and choose another room.